I'm 29 now. Almost 15 years have passed since that night. And still, some memories don't fade. They don't soften. They don't turn into distant stories you can laugh about. They stay sharp, like broken glass in your mind. This is one of them. When I was 15, I wanted independence. My own money, my own choices. My parents were strict, so babysitting felt like freedom. Easy work, quick cash, no stress. Or so I thought. When Mark and Diane asked if I could watch Charlie for a Friday night, my parents immediately said yes. They're good people, my mom told me. You'll be safe. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? They lived in one of the nicest neighborhoods in town. Big house, clean streets. No crime, no noise, no trouble. At least on the surface. We arrived at 6:25 p.m. The sky was turning orange. Streetlights were just starting to glow. Their house stood at the end of a quiet block. 2 stories, white walls, dark blue shutters, large windows, warm light inside. It looked welcoming, comforting, like nothing bad had ever happened there. Diane hugged me as soon as I walked in. "You're a lifesaver," she said again. Mark smiled politely, professional, serious, like he treated everything as important, even babysitting. Charlie peeked from behind the stairs, holding his dinosaur, watching me carefully. They didn't rush. They were detailed, almost too detailed. Dinner schedule, TV rules, bedtime routine, emergency numbers. Then Mark took me to the back door. "This is important," he said. 2 locks. He showed me both. "Always lock both." I nodded. Didn't argue, didn't question. Inside, I thought, no one's breaking into this place. I was wrong. After they left, Charlie relaxed. He talked more, smiled more. We played cards, then video games. He beat me easily and laughed about it. We ate dinner together. He spilled cheese on his shirt. I helped him clean it. It felt nice, like being an older brother. I started to care about him, which made what happened later hurt even more. At 8:30, I took him upstairs. The hallway felt long, too long, quiet, too quiet. His room was cozy, posters, toy cars, stuffed animals, soft yellow light. I read him a story. He yawned, but didn't fall asleep immediately. "Can you wait outside?" he asked. "Just a little." I agreed. I stood there, listening. 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. Nothing. I left. I was in the guest room, scrolling on my phone, half watching TV, when I heard footsteps. Slow, careful. Charlie stood there, eyes wide. "There's something in my closet." I smiled, tried to be calm. But something in his voice bothered me. It wasn't playful, it wasn't dramatic, it was serious. I walked him back, opened the door, looked inside. Nothing, just clothes, boxes. I even moved things to show him. He relaxed, but I didn't, not completely. 15 minutes later, he returned. More scared. The door moved, and it had. Wide open. I felt cold. I closed it. It felt solid, heavy, not loose, not broken. Impossible to move on its own. My confidence started cracking. I went back, but couldn't relax. Every sound felt strange. The AC, the pipes, the house settling, all sounded wrong. Then he called me again, crying, pointing, corner, hamper. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw the shape, human, crouched, hiding, eyes watching me, not blinking, not moving, alive, and dangerous. My body moved before my mind. I grabbed Charlie, ran, locked the door, called police, whispered, cried, waited, sirens, officers, search. Nothing. Front door open. Gone. Mark checked the locks. Deadbolt unlocked. My mistake. My guilt. My nightmare. Charlie stopped sleeping alone. I stopped trusting safe places. I stopped thinking bad things only happened to careless people, because we weren't careless. We were just human. And that was enough. That night taught me something. Fear doesn't announce itself. It hides, in closets, in corners, in places you never think to look. By the time I turned 17, I thought I understood fear. I thought I knew how it felt, how it sounded, how it stayed in your chest like a heavy stone. And after what happened with Charlie, I promised myself I would be careful, more alert, more serious. No more careless mistakes. No more trusting people just because they seemed nice. But life has a way of testing promises. And when AJ's mother called me on a Sunday afternoon, her voice sounded tired, exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. And she said softly, "Chris, I heard you're good with kids. I really need help sometimes." I hesitated as my mind went back to that closet, that dark corner, those eyes. But she continued, "He's quiet. He won't bother you. He mostly stays in his room." And quiet sounded safe, easy, predictable. So I said yes. And the first time I went there, the house felt cold. Not temperature-wise, but emotionally. With no photos, no family pictures, no messy toys. Everything clean. Too clean. And AJ barely looked at me, sitting on his bed with a controller, eyes glued to the screen, gunshots echoing, answering my questions with one-word replies like, "Yeah, okay," and "no." And the first two jobs were simple. He fed himself, played games, went to bed. No trouble, no talking, just silence. And I almost forgot my fear. Almost. So when his mom asked me to stay overnight, I accepted again. And that afternoon, she rushed around the kitchen explaining pizza, cereal, extra blanket, emergency number, then hugged me too tight and whispered, "Thank you," like it was more than babysitting. While AJ didn't even come downstairs. And that evening felt wrong. He barely ate, took food upstairs, closed his door, and I heard loud, violent games, screaming characters and explosions, while I tried watching TV but couldn't relax, feeling like a guest in someone else's nightmare. And around 9:30, while texting a friend and laughing quietly, I felt it. That sensation of being watched, and saw AJ standing half hidden in the doorway, eyes locked, not blinking, not smiling. And when I said his name, he walked away without a word, killing my laughter. And at 11, when I turned off the light and tried to sleep, every sound made my heart jump. And when I finally drifted off, I felt someone near me, opened my eyes, and saw a tall, silent shape at the foot of my bed, turned on the lamp. And there was AJ, pale, empty-faced, hands behind his back. And when I asked what he was doing and told him to show his hands, he shook his head slowly like he was deciding something. And when I grabbed his sleeve and turned him, I saw the heavy, long, sharp kitchen knife reflecting the light. And for a second, I couldn't breathe. Then I screamed, "Drop it! Get out!" And he flinched and ran down the hall still holding it, while I slammed the door, locked it, pushed chairs against it, shaking as I called his mom crying. And she apologized, saying he'd been struggling and seeing things, and she should have told me, making it worse. And after she called his father, and I stayed locked in listening to every sound for an hour, expecting the door to break. It never did. And when the doorbell rang and his father came, tired and regretful, saying, "I'm sorry," I packed and left without looking back, breathing hard in the cold night air, live and free. And later, his mom sent money and a message saying sorry for putting me in danger, which I never replied to, because that night taught me something important. Silence is not peace. Quiet is not safety. And some storms make no noise until they destroy everything. By the time I was 21, I had learned something important. Fear doesn't always look dramatic. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. It pretends to be normal. It hides inside familiar places and waits. And when my sister called me one afternoon in a cheerful voice, asking if I could watch Emma and Lucas because they had a wedding out of town, I normally would have said no after everything I'd been through and my fear of being responsible for kids at night. But they were my niece and nephew, my family, and I trusted them in their house. So I agreed. and that evening was warm and quiet as we ate Chinese takeout, watched a cartoon, laughed. Emma fell asleep on my shoulder, and Lucas kept asking questions, everything feeling safe and comforting. And at 9, I took them upstairs, tucked them in, and left the hallway light on. But 30 minutes later, Emma came out holding her blanket, asking why I told her to sleep again. And when I said I didn't, she insisted I stood at her door. And though I smiled and said it was probably a dream, something felt wrong inside. And 20 minutes later, Lucas said I had been in his room too, and looked at him and left, making my stomach drop. And with 2 kids telling the same story, I turned off the TV and listened to the 2 silent house. And suddenly, fast footsteps ran upstairs as Emma screamed and ran downstairs shaking. And I told them to sit still while I went to the kitchen and grabbed a knife out of fear, walking heavily through the dark hallway with shadows stretching and doors looking suspicious, checking Emma's room, Lucas's room, and the bathroom with nothing there, until I heard breathing from my sister's bedroom, pushed the creaking door as moonlight filled the room and something moved near the window. And when I raised the knife and asked who was there was no answer, only a whisper saying, "Good night," in my own voice, freezing my blood. And then a figure stepped out from behind the curtain with my height, body and clothes, but wrong, with dark, empty eyes and a too wide smile, saying in my voice, "You take good care of them. Now it's my turn." And I dropped the knife and ran, grabbed Emma and Lucas, and ran barefoot across the lawn to the neighbor's house, crying and screaming until they called the police, who searched everything and found nothing. No footprints, no broken locks, no open windows, nothing. And my sister was confused, then terrified when the kids told the same story. And weeks later, she called shaking and said they found a baby monitor clip at 2:14 a.m., showing a shadow in the hallway, whispering, "Sleep, sleep," in my voice before disappearing into the wall, and they moved within 6 months and never stayed there again. Emma still sleeps with lights on. Lucas hates closed doors, and I stopped believing in coincidence, because some things don't break in. They're already inside, watching, learning, waiting. And sometimes they borrow your face, your voice, your life, just long enough to scare you forever. People often ask me why I never babysat again, why I stopped trusting easy jobs, why I get nervous in quiet houses, why I always check doors twice, why I hate closed closets, why I sleep with a light on, and I usually laugh and change the topic, because the truth is, some stories are too heavy to explain. And when I was 15, I learned that danger can hide in clean houses, in nice neighborhoods, behind friendly smiles, sitting quietly in a corner, waiting for you to look away. And that night with Charlie taught me that being careful is not enough, that sometimes you can do everything right and still be one step away from disaster. And when I was 17, I learned that fear doesn't always wear a mask. It doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it lives with you, eats with you, sleeps in the next room, and waits for the right moment to show its true face. And that night with AJ taught me that silence can be dangerous, that quiet kids are not always okay, and that adults don't always tell you the whole truth. And when I was 21, I learned something even worse, that not everything can be explained. Not every threat leaves footprints. Not every shadow has a body. And that some things copy you, study you, learn your voice, your habits, your kindness, and use them against you. And that night in my sister's house taught me that fear doesn't always come from this world. Sometimes it comes from places we don't understand. And after all that, I changed, becoming more alert, more cautious, more distant, stopping myself from assuming places were safe, people were harmless, or that it'll be fine. Because fine is what people say right before things go wrong. And I still think about Charlie sometimes, and hope he's okay and doesn't remember that man's eyes. I still think about AJ and wonder if he got help and found peace. And I think about Emma and Lucas and how childhood ended too early for them because of one night, one voice, one shadow. And people love scary stories. Listening in the dark with headphones on, heart racing, feeling excited and brave. But real fear is different. It doesn't end when the video stops. It doesn't disappear when the lights turn on. It stays quiet, hidden, waiting. And if there's one thing I learned, it's this. Listen to kids, check the locks, trust your instincts, and never ignore that feeling in your chest when something feels wrong. Because sometimes, that feeling is the only warning you'll get. And I survived 3 nights that could have destroyed my life. 3 moments that could have ended everything. And I'm grateful every single day that I walked away alive. And if you're listening to this right now, late at night in a quiet room with the lights off, just remember, you're not weak for being scared. You're smart for being careful. Good night, and stay safe. If you like this story, please like, comment, share, and subscribe my YouTube channel for more videos.